Everybody knows that there's crap going on with this Activision Blizzard sale to Xbox. I have maintained from the beginning that I think it's probably going to go through. Um, I would guess that it probably goes through, but there's been some more resistance. Initially, the EU was causing some like heavy resistance. They were complaining about it, and so people were kind of worried about that, but not like super worried. Recently, there was like an article leaked by, I think, like the Wall Street Journal or a company like that, and they said, hey, we really think that we've got like heard through the grapevine that there's going to be a lawsuit filed by, I believe, the SEC against this to basically try and stop the acquisition, because they thought that it was potentially harmful to the consumer because it would consolidate too much gaming superpower within one company, that being Xbox. I still think Xbox can make an extremely compelling argument to regulators that this should be allowed because, for one, they're not currently the industry leaders. So it's not like, Apple trying to buy up Google or something. Or like I saw an article just the other day where one of the big master plans people think that Disney is going to try and make in the next year and a half, 2 years, is selling to Apple, because Apple is sitting on like $180 billion in cash or something. And so they could just buy Disney, have the whole Disney catalog exclusive to Apple services, Apple TV, like Disney Plus becomes Apple TV. It'd be crazy. But apparently it's like an actual viable strategy. That I'd be much less convinced would actually go through. But the Activision Blizzard sale to Xbox, I think you can make a compelling argument that this probably should go through. They're not the industry leaders. Sony, Nintendo, Tencent, all of these other companies have way more market share and way higher revenue. So they're just like getting competitive by buying them. So, but all of that's kind of beside the point. In the middle of all of this crap, a lot of interesting things have come out about Sony and Microsoft, because in these court filings, they have to disclose things that they wouldn't normally disclose to the public, right? Because they just don't need to. So they just like keep quiet on this normally. But now all of the dirty laundry is getting aired, and we get to sit here and read through it, and it's honestly quite entertaining if we're pretty if we're being honest about it. So like this one, Sony claims that Microsoft did not allow PlayStation Plus on Xbox. So Sony pushed back against Microsoft's claim that they want to bring Game Pass to PlayStation by asserting that they would not do the same thing for them. This once again emanates from the UK CMA investigation of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. This back and forth between the industry's big gaming console platform owners comes from Sony's own document informing the CMA of their position on the pending acquisition. In a big report thing that they filed, saying that they were really unhappy about this and that it shouldn't be allowed to go through, they said, quote, "Third, Microsoft argues that demand for multi-game subscription services would not tip towards Game Pass because Microsoft would also make Game Pass available on PlayStation. But the wider availability of the leading provider, Game Pass, now endowed with exclusive, irreplaceable content and protected by direct and indirect network effects, would make it would make we got Smeagol arguing here, would make it harder, not easier, for rival multi-game subscription services to compete. Microsoft's stance that Game Pass availability on PlayStation would be a panacea for the harm from this transaction rings particularly hollow, given that Microsoft does not permit PlayStation Plus to be available on the Xbox," which is interesting. In other words, basically they're saying that Microsoft has been arguing that they are going to increase competition by bringing Game Pass to PlayStation, and that's what they want to do. So if they're like, hey, if you're worried that people won't buy PlayStation 5s because they can only get Call of Duty through Game Pass, well, we want to make Game Pass available on PlayStation 5, so then you're good. Problem is just that like PlayStation's never going to allow that. They're going to throw a fit and they're going to keep it exclusive and they're not going to allow it on. Let's be completely honest about that. Like, can you imagine a world where Sony allows Game Pass on that? Like, come on. Nintendo would never allow it, and PlayStation's going to be no different. So for one, it's an immediate non-starter, that this is just never going to happen. And they're trying to say that it's also not fair because Microsoft is not playing by these rules currently. They're not allowing PlayStation Plus on Xbox right now. I would be very interested to know if actual discussions have been made, though, to make this happen. Because I don't know why PlayStation would want PlayStation Plus available on Xbox. Because what this means is that if PS Plus were on Xbox, you could play like The Last of Us, you could play God of War, you could play Days Gone, you could play all of these games on Xbox, which I don't think they want. They want you to have to buy a PS5. So they're saying like this rings particularly hollow given that they don't allow this, which is probably like they found some rules saying like, oh, we don't allow this type of subscription service on the platform, blah, 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 for whatever reason. But like, it's very disingenuous of PlayStation to say this because they're not even like, they don't want this. So what are they complaining about? Like they don't want that, you know, like it's just, this whole thing has really exposed how, there's not even a good term for it, but Sony is willing to just say the most hilariously ironic things with a straight face while trying to argue against this acquisition. Like all the crap that they've said, you know, well, no, you shouldn't allow Microsoft to buy Activision because then they'll make games exclusive and then players on PlayStation won't be able to play the games that are exclusive to Xbox. And then literally the next day, they announced like a 6-month exclusivity deal with whatever video game that is in question. It's unbelievably like, I like, it's just not self-aware. It's hilariously ironic that they are trying to say this with a straight face, but they do it all the time. Term for it, hypocrisy. Yeah, I guess you could say it's hypocrisy. Yeah, I guess that works. That works, Richard. Yeah, it's just hilarious because it's like you do the thing. what are you talking about? You do that very thing. You're complaining that Xbox will make Call of Duty exclusive. And then the next day you launch God of War Ragnarok exclusive to the PS5 and PS4. Like what? Okay, silly. But that's the thing is I just think that a lot of these regulators, I guess, just don't really care, you know? They just like, oh, well, yeah, no, they make a really good point. One of the regulators with the CMA, though, through the UK, said that they were worried what this deal would have in terms of impact on their ability to play games on their PlayStation. And they apparently don't have an Xbox. So they were trying to get like that person knocked off of the case because like, see, they're biased. They only have a PlayStation. So they're only concerned about this. It's just so funny. It's so stupid. The idea that like 5 or 6 people get to decide whether or not a $70 billion deal goes through is crazy to me. It's ridiculous. And it seems like these guys aren't even particularly well equipped or like specialized in understanding what would be best for consumers or whatever else. It's hilarious to me. It's bizarre. To be fair, God of War probably generates like 10% of what COD does every year. Oh, absolutely, in terms of sales. But it's also what PlayStation is worried about. They're not really worried about individual sales of Call of Duty. Yes, they get like a 30% cut of every sale of Call of Duty, but they're not that concerned about that. What they're worried about is people leaving the PlayStation ecosystem to go over to Xbox. That's what they don't want to see happen. And there's like, I think somebody said in chat, like 57% of deals or 57% of Call of Duty sales and revenue was through PlayStation. There's a lot of PlayStation Call of Duty players, a lot of them. And the idea is that if they become exclusive to Xbox, those players are going to go buy an Xbox. And guess what? If they're only playing Call of Duty year in, year out, they're probably not buying a PlayStation as well. Because they have one game that they play, and that's the one game that they really enjoy, and that's Call of Duty, and they buy it every year. And so they're probably not going anywhere, you know, after they swap. So that's what they're worried about. And especially with it being on Game Pass and included, they're much more likely to just go to Xbox, stay on Xbox. And that's why PlayStation doesn't want to allow like Game Pass on the PlayStation 5, because like then there's like, okay, well then why not just get an Xbox, you know? Like why not just do that? Especially because a lot of these Xboxes are going to include like a free 6-month trial for Game Pass or a free 12 months, all of this stuff. And eventually, I'm sure it will become exclusive, full stop. Like, they'll just take it off. And let's be real, they're not going to allow PlayStation to keep these games on the platforms. They've tried time and again. They've offered like 10-year exclusivity. They said like, oh, well, you can do this. You'll have 10 years with Call of Duty, and then we'll make it exclusive. PlayStation was like, well, no, because that'll be in the middle of the PlayStation 6 generation, and players will have no reason to keep on the PlayStation 6. And then when they swap to the PlayStation 7, they'll just buy an Xbox Series Alpha Beta Prime or whatever it's called. Like, it's dumb. But as to whether or not it goes through, I don't know. Bigger deals have gone through in the past. This is the biggest one in all of gaming history. But who knows? I mean, like I said earlier, there's drama around this FTC, not SEC, the FTC, the Fair Trade Commission. They're looking at trying to get involved with this. An update posted on the 24th was Activision Blizzard has responded to the report from Politico saying that any suggestion that the deal between Microsoft and Activision could lead to, quote, anti-competitive effects is completely absurd, end quote. Furthermore, Activision is ready to battle against any of these claims to ensure that the deal will close. That's a $70 billion deal. If they spend $500 million to get this across the finish line, it's still just, it's like it's a little bit more. It's, like a percentage point. It's like, yeah, it would be ideal if we didn't do that, but whatever. So they're going to fight tooth and nail to get this deal through because the stakes are too high. The stakes are too high. And so far, I think Xbox has been playing pretty nicely, but especially if this comes over to American shores and the FTC does file an antitrust lawsuit, the knives are going to come out and it's going to go crazy. Because like PlayStation's playing very dirty right now. PlayStation doesn't give a crap. Like they're saying the most hypocritical, hilariously double-sided crap that they possibly can. And so Xbox just needs to come out swinging and be like, are you joking? You guys have been doing this for decades, and you're going to come and tell us like, oh no, Activision, this deal should not go through because Microsoft will do the thing that we've been doing for 20 years. And it's why like I really don't care either which way. Like as far as like being an Xbox or a PlayStation fan, I have both. It doesn't matter to me where Call of Duty is. I'll be playing on PC. I do not care as far as this goes for Activision stuff. Any Activision game, I would play on PC, right? So I don't care. I don't care there in that way. But it is just so sweet to see PlayStation get a little bitty taste of their own medicine. And it's so hilarious because with a straight face, they try to argue that no, this is not good because games will be exclusive. And then again, the next day, they launch God of War Ragnarok exclusive to PlayStation. It's so funny to me because it's so stupid.